Your top news at 12. Parliament's National Assembly will be the focus of intense interest this afternoon, both in South Africa and abroad. That's as members of the National Assembly are set to decide the future of President Jacob Zuma this afternoon during a motion of no confidence debate in him. Yesterday, National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete announced that the vote will be held through a secret ballot as requested by opposition parties. Now, this will be the 8th motion of no confidence in the president after 7 previous ones failed. South Africa's political landscape could change this afternoon. And according to the Constitution, if enough members of the ANC use the secret nature of the ballot to vote with the opposition, President Zuma and the cabinet should resign, and Speaker Baleka Mbete will then have to take over for up to a month until a new president has been elected. And as the countdown to the motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma continues, the ANC maintains its confidence that its president will survive the vote. SABC News spoke earlier to the ANC's chief whip, Japsin Mthembu. He reiterated that the ANC MPs will not vote with the opposition.
We have welcomed the decision, and again we have reiterated the ANC's stance on this matter, that ANC members of Parliament and the ANC caucus in the Parliament of the Republic will not vote with the opposition in this motion that has been brought by our own political adversaries to remove our president and, as a consequence, make our government to fall. We will not vote with this motion. We will not vote for this motion. Whilst we are aware of various difficulties that we are faced with as a country.
Well, SABC News also spoke to the EFF and the Freedom Front about their take on the secret ballot.
It's not only about the ANC members of parliament, it's also about members of parliament from other opposition parties, the AIC, the NFP, the PAC, the APC, including the 249 ANC members of National Assembly. So it's quite a lot that we have been speaking to.
Parliament was struggling as far as its authority is concerned, being towing the line, being a rubber stamp for the executive. And the last 2-3 months, mostly because some of members of Parliament were turning against Zuma, for the first time Parliament started doing its job in the Communications Committee, in this different ones. And surely this is an opportunity for Parliament to say, we are the legislative, we've got these powers, the Constitution says we have it, let's get our authority back, that we are an important role player. And that's the question this afternoon. Will we toe the line, just go with the executive or the pressure from that side, or be an independent body doing our job as being prescribed by the Constitution?
President Zuma is attending an NC parliamentary caucus that's currently locked in intense discussions ahead of this afternoon's National Assembly debate and vote of the motion of no confidence in him. Other senior NC leaders such as Gwede Mantashe are also present. The party is trying to rally its MPs to vote against the motion which seeks to remove President Jacob Zuma, his cabinet and deputy ministers from office. Yesterday, National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete declared that the vote usually follows debates of this nature, will then be conducted in secret. It's believed that the ongoing caucus meeting is to declare a 3-line whip, meaning MPs must follow the party's decision on the matter at hand. Well, for more on this, I'm very pleased to be joined in studio by political analyst, Professor Stephen Friedman. A very good afternoon to you, Prof. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Alicia. Thank you.
So what are some of your biggest concerns as we head on to the deliberations this afternoon?
Well, my biggest concern, Alicia, is that we've just sacrificed as a country one of the most important democratic principles, which is the idea that members of parliament should vote in the open so that we, the voters, can see what they're doing. The whole idea of being a member of parliament, you're only there because people have voted for you. You are accountable to the people who voted for you. And how can the people who vote for you hold you to account if they don't know what you've done? Absolutely. So it's very sad that we've actually given up that. You know, the Speaker says that it's not a precedent. It's not as easy as that, you know, because in 2 months' time, somebody will say, well, there's some other issue. We had a secret ballot on this. Why can't we have a secret ballot on that? It also contributes to corruption, because it's much easier to buy a person's vote if the public don't know which way that person voted. Yeah.
So, Professor, let's look at the debate in itself. I mean, what are the likely consequences should, of course, some of those alleged MPs vote with the opposition and the motion actually wins?
It's a very interesting question, because you see there are two things happening at the same time, and most of the analysis have totally ignored this. There's what's happening in Parliament and there's what's happening within the ANC.
Yeah.
And what is a majority in Parliament? Look, I don't think this motion is going to pass. But there are obviously 150 opposition MPs in Parliament. There aren't 150 opposition MPs in the ANC caucus. And this means that what happens in Parliament is not necessarily what happens in the ANC. If you had a situation in which a few of the members voted against or voted for the resolution, first of all, your immediate problem is you don't know who they are. Yeah. Now, you've got 3 or 4 of them who've said where they are in public. And the question is, is the ANC going to try and make an example of them? And it's going to depend on factional politics. Yeah. Because some of the faction which is opposed to the president is in a difficult position, because on the one hand, they have to say, look, you have to be loyal to the organization. On the other hand, if they say in public that the president should go, how do you then throw somebody out of the movement for also saying that? So it creates a huge dilemma, and it's really going to depend on which way the factional politics goes. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that a few MPs will vote in favour of the motion of no confidence. But of course, as I say, immediately the ANC can only deal with those who've said publicly what their position is.
Now, Prof, I mean, do you think now that the Speaker is finally allowed for this secret ballot to take place, will it then settle the noise that has been made around this whole voting debacle? And I mean, aren't we going to see more issues then cropping from this very motion it being done in secret? As you've just mentioned, it heightens the issues of corruption. A lot of people were saying, like you were saying just now, that it's very easy to be buying votes and passing around those brown envelopes.
Look, we have a situation at the moment, Alicia, in the Mogale City municipality, in which the mayor was removed by a secret ballot by one member who switched sides. Nobody knows who that member is. But nobody, of course, knows whether that member switched sides out of conviction or because they were bribed.
That's the question.
And that's the reality. You know, what we may have... Look, it may well just be a damp squib in the sense that you'd have 3 or 4 ANC members voting for the other side. Everybody knows who they are, and that will deal with that. But if you have, say, 10 ANC members voting for the resolution, you're going to have witch hunts. You're going to have people saying, was it this one or that one? It's going to create incredible political uncertainty and, of course, doubts, as you correctly say, about whether people are voting. You know, one of the great ironies about this to me is the slogan, and I support that slogan. We should all support that slogan. Everybody should vote with their conscience.
Absolutely.
What kind of conscience is it that can only be expressed in secret?
I was about to ask that.
That's not your conscience.
Prof, I mean, Prof, let's expand on that. I mean, also with the ANC, we've also seen the opposition parties very confident that they've got these numbers that we don't know where they're going to come from. There's even apparently a fake list that is going around of the MPs that are going to switch over and vote with the opposition. So let's talk to us about that.
Look, I find it highly unlikely that this is the case. You see, go back to what I said earlier. Everybody seems to be ignoring the fact that there's such a thing as ANC politics. Okay, so let's say, I don't think it's going to happen. Let's say the president is going to be removed today. Now, who is going to take his place? It becomes a whole factional battle. You may well have a situation in which the people who voted to remove him, let's say he was removed, discover that what they have is another president from exactly the same faction, and then you start the whole process all over again. So that is why we're reading, for example, that some of the leaders of the ANC who are opposed to Mr. Zuma are telling their supporters to vote against the motion of no confidence, because they say there is no guarantee that anything better will come out of this. Because they're saying that, you know, the factional politics will continue, so they could land up splitting the ANC in order to change nothing, because the person who takes Mr. Zuma's place is from the same faction as Mr. Zuma.
But, Prof, is it fair of the opposition to ask members of the opposition to vote with them on this motion? I mean, how does it work in politics?
They're entitled if they want to, but it's not surprising if they don't. And once again, one has to say that there's a double standard here. When 6 members of the 6 EFF councillors in Mogale City vote for the budget, then the leadership says, well, we're going to discipline you and expel you.
Yeah.
Well, are you only supposed to have a conscience if you're in the ANC? You're not supposed to have a conscience if you're in the EFF. The DA are trying to find out which of their members voted in Mogale City the other way. I assure you, if they find out who the member is, they're not simply going to shake the person's hand and wish them well. They're going to probably try to expel them from the party. So the point is that, you know, one has to understand that this idea, which is around here, that it is normal political behavior in South Africa to vote against your party in something as crucial as this, is simply not true. And that is why I find it very unlikely that these opposition claims are accurate. Because if, A, you have the situation where the first instinct of a member of parliament of any party in this country is to vote with the rest of your party. You then have a situation, if you're an ANC MP who's opposed to Mr. Zuma, you then also have a situation in which people you respect, people who are on your side of the argument, are now saying to you, look, don't support this motion because it won't actually work out for us in the long run. I think it's very unlikely that you're going to have more than those few people who have made their position clear. Ironically, they've made their position clear in public. So the secret, we all know which way Dr. Khoza is going to vote. We all know which way Mondli Gungabela is going to vote. So the secrecy doesn't even protect them.
Prof, I like that you bring out the Mogale City issue, because we also know there's a storm looming between the UDM and the DA, also in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro on that very same issue. But I mean, we're currently seeing off the screen there, if you can look at the insert, that is Father Meshwe currently addressing the people that are taking part, Reverend Meshwe that is addressing those people. It is some of the marches that have been organized today to be in solidarity with this vote that the NC MP should vote against their party. Prof?
Well, the point is look, obviously marches are a very important part of our democracy, and it's important that people should express themselves in this way. The question we have to ask is any member of parliament going to change their vote as a result of the march? And the short answer is no. You know, you have to be realistic. You look around the world and you look at places in which people going onto the streets have removed a president. It's not 5,000 people on the streets. It's 500,000 people on the streets. And we don't have that in this country. So if I'm an MP and I see 5,000 people marching down the street, I say to myself, these are people who are opposed to the ANC anyway. They're 25 million voters, not 5,000 voters. And you vote the same way as you're going to. If power on the streets is going to change anything, we have to have double, triple, 10 times the number of people.
Professor Stephen Friedman joining me here in studio to analyze what we could expect as we near, of course, that debate on the motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma. It is set to start at 2, but let's